checks that it was working, then I turned it off, and I've got all about it. So there you are, the video stream is now running on the YouTube channel, which can be found on the ASV website at www.asv.org.au under the Radio Astronomy tab, and there you'll get excellent HD coverage of my mug face, apart from the good old TV system up there as well. We also have an email address, vk3ekh@gmail.com, vk3ekh@gmail.com. So anybody wishing to send reports, by all means, send an email there. And we have a chat window, a Discord chat window, which can be also found under the ASV website under the same link mentioned before to the YouTube stream, which again is www.asv. Now I've forgotten that. www.asv.org.au under the Radio Astronomy tab at the top of the screen, and click on the ASV link. Alright, we've got a few items tonight. We have also a Astrophiz podcast audio recording to play, and tonight's podcast is an interview with John Cecian from the Parkes Radio Telescope, which should be, in fact I've only just finished listening to that again while I was setting up for tonight, and there's quite a lot of interesting little things there that John talks about, and I'll cut across to that in just a short while. But the articles, tonight that I've managed to scrounge together. I haven't quite finished the sky notes for November. There's still a remaining 5 or 6, 7 dates I haven't gone through yet, so I'll mention that. Astrophiz, just mentioned. This is actually a two-parter interview. In fact, it's John Cecian part 1, talking about his beginnings of the Radio Parkes telescope when he started there. 12 interesting facts about Galileo Galilei. Something about iodine propulsion systems. Russian anti-satellite weapon test. What happened with all that? Near-Earth asteroids that could supply future meteor showers. A little report on NASA's START mission, and who was the winner of the Virgin Galactic free trip into space prize. That's a very quick one at the end there. And something about the solar orbiter. The solar orbiter mission is about to do a flyby of Earth, and just something about this James Webb telescope, and then space weather. Now, if I can fit that all in this hour, I'll be amazed. This is generally what I do every Friday night. I just pick things off the internet that look interesting, and before I know it, I'm not even able to finish anything there. So yeah, alright, so this is VK3EKH and ASV Radio, VK3EKH. Time is 5 past the hour already, and we already have a few folks there up on the Discord chat window. Good evening to Rob, VK3XRA, Martin, VK7JAH, and Sir Richard, VK3VRS, and Robert again, VK3XRA. So if you're all available to come up on the Discord chat window, again you can find it. It's easy on the ASV website at www.asv.org.au. That's www.asv.org.au, and look across to where it says Radio Astronomy. If we could provide a much easier link from the home page to all that, we would. And then look under the Radio Astronomy tab, and all will be revealed. Now, things are afoot. Things are changing with the COVID. And I might just also mention that it is very, very pleasing to know, in a sense, that we have found the culprit that did the dirty deed on Russell, the two campers. It's just nice to know that there's been a partial resolution to that. So the story continues though, but it's very interesting how that's unfolded. Okay, there was something else that came to mind just then too. It just left my mind. Anyway, it's okay. Can't remember what that was. No, can't remember. Alright, just briefly, the Astronomical Society Victoria, ASV, was founded, wasn't found, but it was founded in 1922. What's my computer doing? Just the bottom taskbar is doing something funny. It's like something's resting on the keyboard, but not be. No, it's alright, sorry about that. The Astronomical Society of Victoria, founded in 1922, comprises some 1,600 members scattered about the place. Membership of the Society is open to all persons with an interest in astronomy. The Society's objectives are to encourage the study and the practice of astronomy. Meetings are usually held on the second Wednesday of each month, except in January, with the latter being held on a Saturday night. Meetings usually kick off at 8 p.m. at the National Herbarium. We'll probably be getting back to that next year. I know what I was going to say. Next year, if COVID doesn't play us about. I can guarantee you, with this, the way we're opening up things in this country, we'll see another spike happening next year. It'll just go crazy. Anyway, so hopefully we'll be back at the Herbarium Hall next year, which, like I say, meetings start at 8 p.m. and tend to finish about 10 o'clock. But all these meetings currently are on Zoom, and you can find those meetings on the YouTube stream as well as the Facebook stream from the homepage of the ASV. Privileges of membership include the right to borrow books, periodicals and other publications from the Society's extensive library, which is about to open as well, located at the old astronomer's office at the I'm jumping the queue here, Melbourne Observatory, and there's also two members. There's also the free provision of the Astronomical Yearbook, which is this guy here. It's nice, like an almanac, I keep saying. The yearbook provides data for local observations, informative summaries of various celestial objects and other general astronomical information. And there's also, I'm having troubles focusing on the text. The yearbook provides data for local observations, informative summaries of various celestial objects and other general astronomical information. Access is available to telescopes on members' nights held regularly at the Melbourne Observatory. These instruments include the Society's 300mm equatorial reflector, a 300mm portable reflector. There's also a 200mm refractor, which is managed by the Royal Botanic Gardens, and a photoheliograph, which are housed at the observatory. Regular Society Club Night meetings are held on the first and last Fridays of each month at the Society's property located at Burwood, affectionately known as the Lodge. Members are encouraged to use the Society's instruments located there in order to gain first-hand experience in how to use a telescope. Members are encouraged to make and use the Society's country property located near Heathcote, some 90-minute drive north of Melbourne. The Leon Mao Dark Sky Site, LMDSS, offers superb views away from the light-polluted Melbourne and is an ideal spot for visual observing. Members are encouraged to make and use telescopes, and of course advice and help on both matters are provided willingly to newcomers desiring to do the same. Of course, instrument making is just one of the common interest activities that the Society caters for. There are 20 sections that make up the ASV, and this today I'll just go quickly through them so we can get an idea for the newbies that are listening. The ASV has, in alphabetical order, the astrophotography section, probably our biggest section, Bendigo section, the club section, comet section, computing section, cosmology and astrophysics section, deep sky section, demonstrators section, diurnals, which I think are on a hold at the moment because the section director is wanting to change hands, so I'm not sure if the diurnals is or diurnals is happening at the moment. It's a daytime meet, happens generally on a Tuesday morning once a month. Great Melbourne Telescope section, historical section, instrument making, juniors, lunar and planetary making, that is to say lunar and planetary section, meteor section, new astronomers group, outdoor lighting improvement, something called radio astronomy, solar space exploration, which is I should be able to join that section as of this week, as of this month, as of next month. Yes, hopefully I'll be able to pop up on that on the Thursday nights that occurs, because usually it clashes with something else we do. Alright, so that's the astronomical business, and if you want to find out more information about the ASV, go to the wonderful ASV website at www.asv.org.au. It's a very simple URL, or type in the Astronomical Society of Victoria in your favourite search engine. There's quite a few of them out there. Alright, now I'm not sure how long the interview is with Mr. Cecian. This is what's going to probably kill the rest of the articles I have tonight. So let me go across to the audio recording. Thanks to Brendan O'Brien of astrophys.com fame for allowing me to play this snippet from his 1 hour program. Astrophys episode number 17, John Cecian, and I don't think there's anything there to rave on about anymore. So what we shall do, I'm just going to make sure this all goes nice and smoothly. Normally it doesn't. I'll bring up the audio recording, so it's there. I now also have to open up the microphone, the audio from the computer, which I've got to be careful about. So that's ready to go, and then there's a slide to bring up on the TV, so you can see John Cecian standing in front of the Parkes telescope. This is VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel, the official station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria. Stand by for our episode 17 podcast. Making sure this goes right.
Hello, John.
Hi, Brendan. How are you, mate?
Very good, thank you.
How's everything going?
All very good here in northeast Victoria.
Okay, that's right. So it's a beautiful day. I don't know if you can... I've got the video on. You can see the telescope behind me there.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What a view. Yeah, that's on my bucket list. Another one of the many places I want to go.
Yeah.
Today it gives me great pleasure to speak with John Cecian, who is the operations scientist at the Parkes Radio Telescope. Now, John, can you tell us, how did you first develop an interest in science?
Okay, well, it actually goes back some time, in fact, to the 21st of July, 1969, I guess. At the time, I was 6 years old and in first class, and with my fellow classmates, I sat cross-legged on a cold wooden floor in the school assembly hall and watched Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walk on the moon. Little did I know at the time that the very place that was receiving those television pictures and beaming it to 600 million people around the world would be the place that I'd end up working at some 30 or so years later. And so I guess you could trace my interest in science back to that, but I really didn't get into it until about fifth class or so, when as part of a library assignment, we were taught how to use a library to research information, and the teacher asked us what we wanted to research so that we could go into the library and look up the information, learn how to use library cards and things like that.
Very good, John.
I was born in 1962. In fact, the day I was born was the day Mariner 2 was launched to Venus, the very first interplanetary space probe. And so you could say I've had it in my blood to, be interested in space and space travel and so on. I do understand how that can inspire you to do science and astronomy.
Fantastic, John. And then after your time at school, you moved on and did a Bachelor of Applied Science in Physics. Were you already heading into radio astronomy at that stage?
Yeah, no, at that time I started work at IBM in the mid-80s, and I thought I really should be doing a degree that's more applied and so on, so I could apply it to my work there and so on. And I did the applied physics because it was very hands-on. I'm a very hands-on sort of person. I really like that. I don't like just sitting down and not getting involved. I like to make things and fix things and play around with it. For me, science is a verb. It's not a noun. You've got to get your hands dirty to do it and tinker with the tools and so on. As a young man, I built my own telescopes, optical telescopes, and made little crystal sets and things like that. So I wanted something hands-on, and an applied physics course was just ideal for me. I'd always been interested in astronomy since fifth class when I did the library project. My project was on astronomy. At the time, I didn't know what it was called. I told the teacher I'll do the sun, the stars, and the moon. And she said, "Oh, you want to do astronomy, John?" And luckily, another boy in the class wanted to do space travel. And so she said that, well, since we're doing something similar, why don't we work together? And his name was Hamish Walshan. And we ended up becoming really great friends and egging each other on. And the first task we did in that library assignment was to look up NASA, find out what it actually meant. I had no idea at the time. I found the book Challenge of the Stars by Patrick Moore in the library, and it had an official commendation by NASA. And I said, I found it. I found out what NASA means. And so from that day on, astronomy and space travel were like synonymous for me, and I've always had an interest in it, always wanted to get into that field. In the 80s, I helped found the Sydney Uni Astronomical Society, and then after I left to work at IBM and so on, I started the Endeavour Astronautical Society and did various other things, and so the two were always synonymous. And I guess, when I came to Parkes, I was able to combine the two, do space tracking with the Galileo mission and other missions, as well as astronomy. Okay. And so for me, but I'd always wanted to saw myself as optical astronomy, but coming to Parkes, of course, being a radio telescope, I had to change the way I think, if you like, to understand how radio astronomy differs from optical astronomy. Essentially, it's the same. It's just the wavelengths are a million times longer, that's all. And so you've got to use slightly different techniques. But I think my background in applied physics and so on really aided me in getting a grip and handle on all that and understanding it a lot better. And so, for me, it was a great learning experience doing that applied physics because it had great relevance for what I ended up doing here.
Now, before we get on to the missions you've worked on, let's go back a little bit. We've got very strong Russian connections here at the Astrophys podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your time at Byurakan in Armenia in the former USSR?
Yeah, actually the story goes back to 1989. I was backpacking through Europe at the time, and I thought I'd visit the Soviet Union when, during the Gorbachev era, it was still communist and still firmly in the Cold War. And so I was only there for about 10 days or so, but I visited Armenia, that's where my ancestors were from. And while I was there, I went up to the Byurakan Observatory, which at the time was the second largest astronomical observatory in the Soviet Union. And I was only there for about 10 minutes or so because the bus that I was on had to leave. So I hastily, in my very, very broken Armenian and so on, tried to let them know I'd like to see the 100-inch telescope. And they took me round to the back of the campus there, and I could see it on the hillside. And I thought, oh, that's great. Took a few pictures. And as I was going back to the bus, the astronomer who was showing me around mentioned that they take they often have overseas students work there for 6 months, a year or so.
Yep.
So when I returned to complete my applied physics degree, as part of my degree at UTS, the University of Technology Sydney, we have to do industrial experience, work a semester at various places. And normally the lecturers would find work for you in Sydney or elsewhere in Australia. And so I remembered what that astronomer said, and I asked if I could do mine overseas. And they were pleased because it meant that was one less thing that I had to look for, one less position. So at the time also, I had a summer scholarship at the Anglo-Australian Observatory. So I wrote to the observatory in the Soviet Union and asked if I could, and applied for for a student position there, and to my complete astonishment, I got accepted, and that was early 1991 in January. It was too late to do that semester, so I said, well, I'll do it on the second semester, beginning in July. So arranged all the travel documents and so on. It took a long time, as you can imagine, during the Soviet era. And I arrived at the end of July. 3 weeks later, there was the August coup attempt.
Yep.
Where the hardliners tried to overthrow Gorbachev, which failed. About 3 weeks after that, there was 4 weeks after that, there was a referendum, independence referendum in Armenia. So it actually seceded from the Soviet Union. And then on December the 25th, Christmas Day, the Soviet Union ceased to exist.
Yep.
And in January, the following month, my work completed, I came back home. Little did people know that I was there on covert operations, destroy the Soviet Empire. So if anyone had told me before I left that by the time I returned to Australia, 6 months later, there'd be no more Soviet Union, I would have thought they were crazy. Honestly, I would have thought they were crazy. It seemed such a preposterous thing, that this mighty Soviet Union would all be gone within months. Actually see it happen, to be there at the time and to see a nation suddenly collapse and disappear, the economy collapse, entire nation impoverished, that was truly eye-opening. The observatory I worked at had 88 astronomers. By the time I left, there was no one working there. Oh. There was no power, no electricity, no fuel, no food, no water. Astronomers weren't paid for several months. It was freezing. I got very, very little done, actually. I had a whole list of things that I was to do when I was there. And unfortunately, because of the very dramatic and historic circumstances, the events that occurred, I wasn't able to complete everything. So I remember when I returned, I went back to my AAO offices and completed all my tasks in 2 days. It really was an eye-opener on how astronomy is done around the world, comparing it with, say, Australia and with the powerful Soviet Union. So even though I didn't get much science done, I learnt much more than I thought I would. And of course, it was a great experience. And I maintained contacts with the astronomers there, but also in Moscow. I knew some astronomers there and visited them. At one point, I was to go to the big 64-meter antenna radio telescope at Yevropatoria in the Ukraine, Crimea. But because of the coup and the establishment of the Commonwealth of Independent States, it was suddenly a different country.
Yes.
And I didn't have a visa to visit the Ukraine, so I couldn't go. I was very upset. So the astronomers said, well, we're going to the big Special Astrophysical Observatory, a 6-meter telescope at Zelenchitskaya in the Russian Caucasus, which at the time was the largest optical telescope. But with just 2 weeks before we were to go, they cancelled my trip there because they were very worried that I might be kidnapped and ransomed, being a Westerner.
Yep.
Because the nearest airport to the site was in a neighbouring republic. Even though Zelenchitskaya was in Dagestan, that you had to land by plane in a neighbouring republic and then catch a bus to the observatory, and that republic was Chechnya. And of course, the fighting broke out at that time.
Yes.
And they were very worried that I might get kidnapped and ransomed. And in fact, some Westerners were. And so it wasn't a misplaced concern. Again, I was pretty disappointed. I couldn't go.
Imagine.
But I did get back in one piece to Australia. So I'm grateful for that.
Excellent. Now let's move on, John, and move on to your early work at Parkes with Galileo.
Mm-hmm. Okay, 20 years ago this week.
Yep.
I started work at the telescope on the 23rd of October 1996 as a Galileo operator because, as you may be aware, the NASA's Galileo spacecraft was, soon after it was launched, the big high-gain antenna failed to unfurl properly. It was supposed to open up like an umbrella.
That's right.
But it was stuck, and despite all the best efforts of NASA and JPL, they just couldn't get it to unstick. And that was going to, they were actually facing disaster because without that antenna, they couldn't transmit the high volume data that they wanted to send back from Jupiter.
Yep.
The antenna, the high gain antenna, which operated at X-band around 8.4 gigahertz, was designed to transmit 134,000 bits per second back to Earth. But without that, they couldn't do that. And so there was a small S-band antenna operating at around 2.4 gigahertz, but it was very low power and omnidirectional, and they could only get 10 bits per second from of data. So, 10 bits compared to 134,000 bits, well, that was staring disaster in the face. But fortunately, it took several years for the spacecraft to get there, because it went on a long circuitous route, but gravity assisted the Earth and Venus and so on to get there.
Yes.
That they had plenty of time to come up with a solution. And the solution was to array or link not just the big antennas at the NASA tracking stations around the globe, but also include Parkes in that also, so that by linking the instruments together, they could boost the received signal strength and increase the bit rate from about 10 bits per second to 160 bits per second. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but it's nothing compared to 134,000 bits, but it's better than 10. And by using really clever data compression algorithms and only prioritizing the high priority signs and so on, they could actually salvage about 70% of the mission by doing that. And so the CSIRO Parkes telescope, he was contracted to provide that link. And the idea was that for 10 hours every day for 1 year, we would track the spacecraft as it rose above our horizon and track it until it set. And it would be linked with the big 70-metre dish at Tidbinbilla,
yep,
as well as the 70-metre dish at Goldstone at the beginning. And then also link it with 2 other 34-metre antennas at Tidbinbilla, so that when all antennas were on Jupiter receiving the signal, they could get it up to that 160 bits per second. But in order to do that, they needed people to operate it. And so I came in as one of 3 Galileo operators. We would work, we each do 1/3 of the tracking duties over that year. And so I started working. The other 2 were appointed earlier in the year, so they had months to prepare. But I started at Parkes 1 week before the tracks were to begin. So I had a really super steep learning curve. And when I first started, I thought, what have you done, John? You've bitten off more than you can chew. But I remember just thinking, look, no, just treat it like it's a small telescope. The principle's the same. So just scale it up, John. Don't be intimidated. So yeah, we began the formal tracks actually I've got the date here, the 28th of October, 1996, and it went until the 6th of November, 1997. So I was originally here for that 1-year contract, but during the time that I was here, the person who was managing the tracking operations resigned and left, and I was asked to take over from him and assume his duties. And so when the contract was completed, they advertised that position formally, and I'd been doing it for almost a year. So I was very pleased that I was able to get the job. So I joke now that I'm 20 years into my 11-month contract now.
Excellent.
It was a fantastic time, and to see the mission succeed when at first it looked like it was going to be a total failure was really satisfying. We were contracted to support the telescope for, I've got the exact figure here, for 96.25% of the time, that we were supposed to. That was our contract specification, and I remember working really hard when I was managing it to get that number, to get that 96, because if we weren't tracking it for 96.25%, we would be penalised financially, part of the contract.
And there'd be big holes in the data.
That's right, yeah. But also, some of the things that might cause it would be like equipment failure or operator error or even wind. But in the end, almost all the time we lost was because of wind. We didn't have any equipment failure or operator error in all that time. And so we ended up with an overall uptime of 96.95%. We exceeded the contract specs, which people thought we weren't able to do. So I was very, very pleased with that. But in order to support the mission, the telescope had to be completely upgraded and modified. We had to build a new receiver for the telescope to operate at S-band, very low noise. It was only about 18 Kelvin, I think. It was very, very, and very cold, cryogenically cool. But also we built a new focus cabin for the telescope.
Yep.
The new cabin was double the size and weight of the old one and could house several receivers in the focus cabin and move any one of them onto the focus within a minute or so. Whereas in the past, you'd have to dismantle it and bring it down and take the new one up and assemble it. You could spend a day doing that. But because they only needed us to track Galileo for 10 hours a day, if we only had the one receiver, then we couldn't really do much else with the other 14 hours. So we told NASA, ATNF, the Australian Telescope National Facility, our division of CSIRO, told NASA, sure, we can do it, but you'll have to rent it for 24 hours a day because the remaining 14 hours was pretty much unusable with that receiver.
Yep.
And so NASA realised if they spent $3 million financing the construction of new focus cabins so that we could move receivers on and off very quickly, that would be a good option, because then we could change receivers and do radio astronomy for the remaining 14 hours and then switch back again very quickly for the next Galileo track the following day. And so we did that, and then so NASA spent $3 million financing the construction of the new focus cabin, and then they rented it 10 hours every day for 1 year. It was still cheaper than renting it for 24 hours a day. And of course, it made the telescope a much better instrument, made it more frequency agile. And in fact, that has been the history of the Parkes Telescope's relationship with NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, because each time that we've tracked a spacecraft for NASA, we've usually upgraded the telescope in some way so that we have a better instrument to do radio astronomy, and NASA has a more capable instrument for the next time they want to use us. So it's a win-win situation for both of us. And so that new focus cabin, because it was bigger, meant that we could build bigger, more versatile type of receivers. For example, in January 1997, when we were just a few months into the Galileo tracks, we installed the new 13-beam multi-beam receiver, which was basically 13 receivers in one that allowed us to see 13 points simultaneously on the sky. You can think of it as a 13-pixel radio camera.
Okay.
It's nothing compared to the multi-megapixel optical cameras that we have, you can buy off the shelf.
Yep.
But when you consider that conventional receivers could only look at a single point, a single pixel on the sky, it's a substantial improvement. It meant you could do surveys 13 times faster, you could see 13 times more sky in any one time. And so we began all these surveys that allowed us to discover over 700 new pulsars. We doubled the previous known number of pulsars. We were able to survey the entire universe visible from Parkes out to 300 million light years, and also peer through the Milky Way to see what lay beyond for the first time. So those surveys that we did with the new multi-beam receiver completely rejuvenated and helped revolutionize the way we see the universe. And so that Galileo failure, and Parkes' involvement was actually ended up being a great thing for Parkes and for radio astronomy in general. And so every cloud has a silver lining, Brendan, and you always make the most of what you get, even the disappointments in life, and you just got to try and do as well as you can with what you've got. And very satisfying to see that how the telescope was rejuvenated. When they built the telescope back in 1961, it was only intended to have a lifetime of 20 years. So in a week's time, we'll be commemorating 55 years of operation. So
Fantastic.
we've well and truly exceeded that. And the reason for it is because we've continually upgraded the telescope, both the external structure but also all the internal stuff. It's fully computer controlled now. We have cryogenically cooled receivers, fiber optic lines everywhere. You can even operate the telescope over the internet. So that the combined upgrades over the years has meant that today the telescope is over 10,000 times more sensitive than when it was built. And it's an extremely versatile instrument. You can do many different types of observations very quickly. So it allows you to follow up in a multi-frequency sort of regime and do lots of different types of observations, from VLBI to spectral line observations, pulsars, space tracking, you name it, or even SETI. We're also searching for extraterrestrial intelligences. So it's a great place to work, and I often have to pinch myself that random walk that I took after school, I ended up being where I wanted to be.
Indeed, and you've been recognised for that work with a AOM here in Australia, so congratulations for that. And you've gone and worked on a lot of iconic missions, and we could probably talk in detail about each of them, but I think we'll have to move on to the Pathfinder and ASGAP.
Yep.
What are your hopes for SKA and Australia's role in SKA?
That's right, yeah. Well, the Square Kilometer Array is envisioned to be the very next generation radio telescope. It'll have a collecting area of 1 million square metres. Of course, you can't build a single dish that large. It's just physically impossible. And it'll be equivalent to building a telescope over 310 times bigger than Parkes, so it's just impossible. But instead, the plan is to build thousands of smaller antennas and then link them all together so that the combined collecting area of all those antennas will be 1 million square metres. So we're calling it the Square Kilometer Array. array.
Yep.
Australia was hoping to host the facility in Western Australia, but a few years ago, back in 2012, the decision by the consortium of 20 countries who have come together to build it was that they wanted to build it in South Africa. And so that's going ahead. The stage one, hopefully, should be construction for that, which is up to the 10% of the SKA. Construction for that will begin shortly and hopefully be completed by 2020. They'll then pause for a year or two to see how it's all going, and then look for commitment to continue to the rest. But in our bid to win the hosting rights for the SKA, our division of CSIRO, the Astronomy and Space Science Division, built a Pathfinder instrument at our chosen site in Western Australia, about 350 kilometres east of Geraldton in Western Australia. It's a very, very remote part of the country in the Murchison Shire, and very free of radio frequency interference, which is what you want for an extremely sensitive instrument like that. And so we're building there, we built there 36 antennas, which we called the Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder. Yep. As a pathfinder for the SKA, so that once it was built, we could demonstrate that we could build the SKA and operate it and so on, so that hopefully we would win the major bid. We missed out on that, but we're still completing the pathfinder, which we call ASCAP, the Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder, and we're actually nearing completion for that. By about this time next year, all 36 antennas should have their what we call phased array feed receivers on them. At the moment, we have 12 antennas with those feeds on, and just a week or so ago, we began early science with those 12 antennas. And so as each new antenna has these new radio receivers installed, we'll bring them online and progressively increase our scope, if you like, until we have all 36 operating by about this time next year, or sooner if we can manage it. So I'm a member of the ASCAP operations team. So we'll be operating the telescope remotely. We don't want people to visit the site, because as soon as you introduce human beings, you'll be introducing radio frequency interference, because invariably you're going to need equipment to support them and so on. So we don't want people to visit the site. So all operations will be remote, and we began regular remote observations, I think, just last week, and things are progressing pretty well with some pretty good initial results from the early science, and we'll just be ramping that up over the next year until full operations with the full array begin about this time next year.
Thank you so much, John. Would you like to finish off with a personal rant or rave?
The science is always done by wealthy countries, wealthy organisations and so on. What I learnt when I was in the Soviet Union was that when an economy collapses, science comes to a grinding halt. Because people have other priorities. Only wealthy countries that have sufficient surplus wealth to give you a few crumbs here and there to do science are the ones that actually do science. And so I always advise astronomers that if you want to do astronomy, make sure your country is wealthy. Okay? Because you won't be doing any astronomy if there's no money. The history of science is that, society needs sufficient surplus wealth to do science. Countries have other priorities. When you're hungry, you don't think of science. You think of where the next meals coming from. And I said, I saw that firsthand. The observatory went from being at Buragan, the second largest observatory in the Soviet Union, to having no one work there. Took over 10 years for it to get up to maybe 10, 12, 15 astronomers, but it's never back to where it was. And so, science is an extremely worthwhile, it's a cultural pursuit. People often ask, why do you do science? What point is it? You can always rattle off, the spin-offs like Wi-Fi and other things, that come from it, like from astronomy, for example, okay? But essentially, it's a cultural thing. Why do you listen to music? Why do you watch sport? Why do you go to concert? You could live long, happy lives long lives without any of those, but it'd be a miserable life. And, people just want to know about the universe around them. And the knowledge you get from that has spin-offs. You can devise new technology, new cures for illnesses, new electronic devices to make life more efficient in the modern world and so on and so on. But science itself is a worthwhile cultural pursuit, but you need good funding to do it, and only the wealthy can afford to do it. So you've got to make sure your country's wealthy.
Very good.
The future's looking bright.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, John Cecian, the operations scientist at Parkes.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure.
Okay. Well, there it was, a interview there with John Cecian, who's the science operational science specialist at the Parkes Radio Telescope, and that's labelled as part 1. So I think there's 2 other episodes that Brendan's managed to get John to come up and give a bit of a talk, and I think there's some very good editing going on there. But we certainly heard a lot from John. He's pretty quick. Anyway, that was quite exciting stuff, and he's a very lucky man to be where he is on the Parkes telescope. And I've had a chance to meet him one of the open days up at Parkes. We had arranged to catch up with him, and we were talking about the Radio Jupiter, Radio Jove project, because at that stage they actually had a Radio Jove receiver running up there as well, as a kind of a educational thing for the people that would come into the visitor centre. So I'm not certain if that's still running though at this stage. I don't think it is. You're tuned to ASV Radio, VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel, VK3 EKH, coming to you from the studios of VK3 CSJ. Alright, we've got a couple of 3 emails there. I can acknowledge Don, VK3HDX, David, VK2 ELS, and also Andrew, VK3 KIS, have sent me emails. G'day guys, all checking in there one way or another. Okay, well, now we've only got about 18 odd minutes to go. I might go run a little bit over time because I can. But the next report that I had article to go through tonight, let's just see how long that is. Just bring up my information on it. Okay, I don't know if this will really take up too long, but we'll see how we go. Alright, I've been holding off to this article. It's about Galileo Galilei. 12 fascinating facts about Galileo Galilei that you may not know. Though Galileo pioneered modern physics and astronomy, many of us remain in the dark regarding the details of his vibrant personal life and prolific career. Actually, I've got a slide I can bring up on the video side. Oh, it's there already. Okay, bring that up. Bring up my audio. It always likes to disappear when I do things like that. But there's just a pretty ordinary picture, actually. Anyway, okay, this is November 11, 2021. This was published. As a founding father in the fields of physics and astronomy, Galileo Galilei is known for the countless contributions to science. The Italian thinker stressed a methodical, mathematical approach to studying the universe and inspired the modern scientific method that remains a bedrock of scientific inquiry. Even 380 years after his death, the innovations in the realm of motion and gravity are equally exceptional and have laid the foundations of today's physics and made him one of the greatest scientists of all time. But all these contributions have ellipsed by his astronomical observations, which highlighted spots on the Sun, craters on the Moon, and stars throughout the Milky Way, not to mention his monumental findings on how the cosmos revolve around the Sun. He says, "I discover the heavens many things that have not been seen before before our own age," Galileo wrote in 1615. Indeed, he transformed the way in which people perceive the world, and here's 12 intriguing facts about his life and career that may not be so familiar. Galileo Galilei's names sound similar on purpose. He was born in Tuscany, Italy in 1564, when parents frequently provided their sons with personal names inspired by their traditional family identifiers. In fact, Galileo's forebearers actually used the terms Galileo and Galilei interchangeably as a surname throughout the years. Though this sounds confusing today, people at this time perceived naming conventions as fairly flexible. Most Italians, including Galileo, would have introduced themselves with only a single name, which they occasionally supplemented with their occupation, town or origin, father's first name or traditionally family name. He was a real Renaissance man, even as a boy. Throughout his adulthood, Galileo worked as an astronomer, physicist, philosopher, inventor, and mathematician. His status as an academic polymath can be traced back to his boyhood. Galileo already showed skill in these topics as a child, as well as an aptitude in several artistic areas. He learned all about music from his father, Venanzio Galilei, who worked as a court musician and composer. These lessons inspired Galileo's lifelong passion for several instruments, particularly the lute, L-U-T-E, which he supposedly mastered in charm of style and delicacy of touch as a boy. Galileo also cultivated talent as an artist during his childhood and seriously considered a career as a painter. In fact, later in life, Galileo joined the Accademia dell'Arte d'Arcingo, or the Academy of Drawing Arts, in Florence, and would go on to advise the era's top painters on the Chartreux and perspective, the kind of artist that is. The scientist dropped out of university, it seems. Due to his exceptional intelligence, Galileo was sent to study at the University of Pisa at the age of 16. There, the young man initially enrolled as a medical student, but became increasingly mesmerized by mathematics. The world that Galileo would ultimately write is written in mathematical language, and its characters and triangles, circles, and other geometric figures, without which it is impossible to humanly understand a word. But in 1585, financial constraints forced the aspiring scholar to abandon his studies at the university. Galileo continued researching mathematics independently and as a tutor until 1589, when he triumphantly returned to the institution, this time as a fully fledged professor of mathematics. He was known as a theatrical and controversial teacher. Galileo's lectures about mathematics, mechanics, and astronomy attracted some serious attention. In fact, one of Galileo's students, Venanzio Galilei, claimed that crowds formed as the professor tossed objects from the famous Tower of Pisa, and showed once and for all that the speed of their fall was isolated from their weight. After all, the theory clashed with accepted thinking at the time. Galileo's work with motion propelled the scholar into becoming a major academic player, though it initiated arguments with other academics who were insulted that the professor was undermining their theories as he was assigned to teach. In 1592, Galileo's contract at the University of Pisa elapsed, and the scholar transitioned to the University of Padua, where he worked from 1592 to 1610. As Galileo's career progressed, so did the controversies. Galileo was never married, but he did start a family. Throughout the Renaissance, scholars and academics seldom married, so accordingly to this tradition, Galileo never tied the knot. That said, the academic was associated with a woman named Marina Gamba, and with whom he raised 3 children, Virginia born in 1600 and Livia born in 1601, and Venanzio born in 1606. Ultimately, the 2 daughters joined the convent of San Matteo in Arcerici, and their son pursued a career as a musician. He was a prolific inventor. Galileo is praised for several important inventions, including the thermoscope, a precursor to the modern thermometer that indicates temperature fluctuations, and several forms of sectors, also known as military compasses. The later tool was used for multiplication and division, and finding square and cube roots, among other mathematical functions. Galileo sold these inventions to supplement his salary as a professor. Galileo turned the telescope to the skies. In 1609, Galileo learned of an invention in the Netherlands that made distant objects appear much closer. The scholar immediately moved to make something similar. While he was not the first to fashion the telescope, Galileo's work with the tool was certainly innovative. The astronomer improved the tool to magnify objects up to 20 to 30 times, and, much more famously, was the one for the first individuals to point towards the sky. The sights in his telescope shook the world. Galileo's observations revealed that far more stars were scattered through the skies than previously acknowledged, that the moon's surface was craggy and covered in craters, and that the sun was spattered with sunspots. These findings suggested for the first time that the celestial world was far from perfect. Galileo also observed that strange rings around Saturn, 4 satellite moons around Jupiter, and that Venus transitions through phases that mirrored our own moons, therefore proving that this sister planet really revolved around the Sun. These observations would prove imperative in shattering the even prevalent theory claiming that the universe was centered around the Earth. He was all the rage among royalty. These astronomical breakthroughs, which were described in the year 1610 text, Sidereus Nuncius, the sidereal messenger, brought some serious attention to the scholar, and Galileo capitalized on the publicity by dedicating the text to the ruler of Tuscany, Cosimo II de' Medici, and naming Jupiter's satellites in the Medicean stars after the same figure who was previous student of his and who would become a well-known patron of the arts and sciences. This sort of gesture was prevalent throughout the Renaissance, a word that I can't say very well, and many influential individuals clamoured to support artists and academics to increase their personal prestige. For his discoveries, Galileo was rewarded with an appointment within the Cosmos court. And of course, Galileo clashed with the Church, but not the Catholicism itself. Through these telescope sightings proved to Galileo that the universe was centered around the Sun. His increasingly outspoken support for the heliocentrism had some serious consequences. At the time, the Catholic Church fought to maintain the tradition model of the cosmos, and in 1616 they denounced the heliocentrism as foolish and absurd and formally heretical, since it seemed to contradict several Bible passages. As a result, Galileo avoided the topic publicly until 1632, when he published the Dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, which seemed to ardently support the heliocentrism. Galileo was immediately tried by the Vatican, whereupon he was determined to be vehemently subject of heresy and sentenced to indefinite house arrest. Though Galileo is famed for his conflict, the scholar was surprisingly devout in his personal life, and he was raised as a staunch Catholic and even considered the priesthood as a potential career. And finally, this is the 11th thing. He became blind, but not by the sun, as you would probably imagine. Galileo continued working and writing while imprisoned for heresy in his home near Florence, but during this time his vision began to blur. By 1638 the astronomer had become completely blind, though it was thought at the time that his blindness was a result of staring at the sun. This condition was probably caused by cataracts and glaucoma. And finally, the astronomer continues to point towards the skies. Today, the Museo Galileo in Florence houses the world's largest collection of Galileo's trinkets and tools, including 2 surviving telescopes that continue to inspire scientific minds. Interestingly enough, these telescopes appear alongside several of Galileo's detached fingers, which were removed from his body by ardent devotees following his death. Good grief. Today, these fingers are displayed directing upwards, pushing people to continue to challenge and refine their conceptions of the cosmos. Oh, okay, there you go. There's 12 fascinating facts about Galileo Galilei, if you kept up with me through all that. They can be found on the astronomy.com website under the news tab, dated the 11th of November. That's how long I've been holding on to that article. Alright, it's nearly up to the hour. The other thing I was going to mention, I'm going to shortcut things here a little bit. I'll go back to my camera. Okay, there I am back on camera. This is VK3EKH. I was going to just find something quick. Nothing's quick. You would have seen in the news this week about NASA's DART mission to deflect an asteroid. Is a little like Armageddon, but with a few key differences. Now, I won't go right through this article, but they're saying here that NASA's one-way mission to crash a spacecraft into an asteroid has blasted off, which I think we all saw in the news. The double asteroid redirection test DART, D-A-R-T, has begun its 10th month journey to nudge a space rock out of its orbit. It's the first time NASA has attempted a trial of what it calls the kinetic impact technique, aka smashing a spacecraft into a space rock as a planetary defense strategy. We're trying to make sure that a rock from space doesn't send us back into the Stone Age, said Thomas Slater from NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office. Even though it's unlikely that an asteroid will hit us during our lifetimes, it's one of those things that can happen. If we're ever in a situation where we need to defend the Earth, we will want to know how much a real kinetic impactor moves a real asteroid. Although this might sound like flashback from the 1998 movie Armageddon, there are some key differences. And so what is the spacecraft going to crash into? It says here the spacecraft is heading out to an asteroid called Didymos, which sits in the main asteroid belt between Mars, Jupiter, about 11 million kilometers away from us. Didymos, D-I-D-Y-M-O-S, is orbited by a similar asteroid called Dimorphos, which is about 160 meters in diameter. Dimorphos is the smallest thing NASA has ever attempted to hit, says DART mission lead Andy Cheng of the Johns Hopkins University. It's half the height of the Eiffel Tower, said Dr. Cheng, who first proposed the mission to NASA. There are buildings that are bigger than this asteroid, but an asteroid of this size could still pack a punch if it hits us. It's the kind of asteroid that you would want to deflect if you ever discovered one heading toward Earth, because an asteroid this size would destroy the whole area around the city. Dr. Cheng said. Luckily, Dimorphos will never hit the Earth, which is one of the reasons why it was chosen. It was also chosen because changes to its orbit can be observed from Earth-bound telescopes as it passes in front of its companion Didymos, causing dips in light. If you did this at a single asteroid, you would actually need a second spacecraft to measure the changes, said Dr. Chang. The final reason is that it becomes unusually close to us in the year 2022. That will not only make it cheaper to get to, but brighter to look at through telescopes on Earth. And we don't even know of another asteroid system that meets all this criteria. So yeah, so there's just a little bit more to that, but stay tuned and we'll watch for the updates on that one and see how well they actually do, if the effect is real, impacting onto the asteroid. Now, there's just one other thing I'll follow up on. Let me just bring up a picture here of this happy group. Alright, so Virgin Galactic announces a winner of the free trip to suborbital space. Now, some of you that are on Facebook and elsewhere probably saw the advertisements from Virgin about a chance to win a free prize to or a free trip on board the Virgin spacecraft Galactica, and one might have thought, oh, it's just a joke, but apparently it's not. Virgin Galactic announces winner of a free trip to suborbital space. Kirisha, a health and energy coach from Antigua and Barbuda, plans to fly with her daughter. Now, there's a picture of them up on the screen here at the moment. Virgin Galactic just gave out 2 free rides to the final frontier. The spaceflight company and the charity fundraising platform Omaze announced today, 24th of November, that Keisha, K-E-I-S-H-A, Keisha S., a health and energy coach from the Caribbean nation of Antigua and Barbuda, has won 2 seats aboard Virgin Galactic's VSS Unity space plane. That's a 900,000 value ticket, couple of tickets. Virgin Galactic is currently selling seats for 450,000 apiece. And it goes on to say that I've always had a lifelong love of flying and fascination with space, said the winner, and this is truly a dream come true for me, she says. It means the world to me. I hope to share this experience with my daughter, so together we can inspire the next generation to follow their dreams, she says. Virgin Galactic and Omaze unveiled the sweepstakes in July, just after Unity flew its first fully crewed spaceflight. That mission, known as Unity 22, sent Virgin Group founder Richard Branson and 3 other crew members along with 2 pilots to suborbital space from Spaceport America in New Mexico. Each dollar donated to the sweepstakes via Omaze bought 10 entries. And the contest, which ran through August 31, drew donations from 164,338 people around the world and raised a projected 1.7 million, Virgin Galactic representative said. The money will benefit the non-profit Space for Community Citizen Astronaut Program, CAP. This program invites people from a variety of backgrounds to apply for an opportunity to go to space and experience the overview effect, the cognitive shift in awareness that occurs when a human being looks down on the Earth from space. Each year, a new crew is selected from a diverse group of leaders from around the globe. They added, upon their return, each citizen astronaut has a commitment to leaving leveraging that experience to the collective good. So, good on them. I wish them all the best. I hope that the trip is successful for them, and I'm sure it will be, and I'm sure the experience will be out of this world. This is VK3EKH, the official station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria, about to just quickly give us a quick space weather report. Solar wind is currently at 353.3 kilometres a second at a density of 7.7 protons per cubic centimetre. There is one solar flare on the disk of the Sun at the moment, AR 2898, although there is some area that's circled, but it's not identified at this stage. But basically one sunspot is on the disk of the Sun as we speak. The sunspot number thus far is number 20, and the radio sun the radio sun measures at 94 solar flux units, 94, at a frequency of 10.7 centimeters. Yes, I was going to mention about the solar orbiter to buzz the Earth. It mentions here in space weather. The European Space Agency Solar Orbiter spacecraft is about to fly by the Earth for a gravity assist, bending its orbit toward the Sun. At closest approach on the 27th of November, the probe will speed just 460 kilometres above the Atlantic Ocean. It's the riskiest manoeuvre of the entire mission, as the solar orbiter dips into the debris zone of the Russia's recent ASAT test. Heavens Above has local flyby times for potential observers. The spacecraft will glow like a 9th magnitude star before it shoots out on its way to the Sun. It's pretty close flyby, really. And I was going to mention about the Russian debris field. That was going to be another article, but we just ran out of time. Okay, so finishing off with space weather. The American NASA All-Sky Cameras system has recorded 6 fireballs in its cameras that monitor the sky 24/7, I think. And as of the 26th of November, there is 2,239 potentially hazardous asteroids. Alrighty then, I think that's about it for tonight. Thanks everybody for having a listen tonight. More information about the Astronomical Society of Victoria can be found from the website at www.asv.org.au, and December the 11th, I think, is the Starbecue up at the Dark Sky site up at Heathcote. You have to get a ticket to get access to the site for COVID reasons. So all that information is available on the homepage of the ASV. I want to thank those who sent me emails. I'll have a read of those in a little while, but Don, David, Andrew, Ian have sent emails about reports, and of course we've got numerous people there on the chat window, Richard and Rob, and I think Mark was there as well. Alright, you're tuned to ASV Radio, the official station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria. We're concluding transmissions 1865 right now. There'll be a callback on the 80 metre service on 3541, so standby stations on 80 metres. This is VK3EKH, concluding on 1865. Thank you for listening on this frequency. We'll be back again next week to do it all again. Good night everybody on 160. This is VK3EKH with VK3CSJ on the microphone. Cheers everyone. Okay, stations on 80. Let me get my notepad ready, turn up the volume and see who is there. This is VK3EKH calling for listeners on 3541. VK3 Julia Romeo. You're all doubled. All right, I've got VK3KIS, VK3JR, and VK3BTE. Who else was there? All right, correction on the Bravo Sierra Echo, BSE. Sorry about that. The next station I managed to hear was VK3VIN. So who else was there? All right, VK3NFS and VK7JAH. Whew. All right, I'll just read that list again because I'm sure there's one or two others there. We've got VK3KIS, VK3JR, VK3BSE, VK3VIN, VK3NFS, VK7JAH. Was there anybody else? Get you, Dave. No worries at all. Anybody else?
VK2 Charlie Bravo Delta CBD.
Fantastic, good signal, VK2 CBD. All right, we'll go back to the top of the list and go from there. G'day, Andrew, VK3KIS, VK3EKH. I thought you were there. Andrew, VK3KA, is he coming up on 80 metres? Maybe not. Maybe I just imagined it. All right. Get straight to Frank. VK3JR, VK3EKH.
VK3EKH, VK3JR. Good evening. Good evening, Craig. Good evening. Ian and Andrew and everyone else on frequency. Thank you for the broadcast. I missed some of it. But can you hear me? VK3EKH, can you hear me, Clint?
A little bit intermittent, Frank. It sounds like you've got a little bit too much audio on. Definitely knock the mic gain back a little bit. That might be overdriving something in the transmitter, perhaps. But you kind of started out okay, but again a little bit too much on the audio. And then you started to drop off. So see how you go again. VK3JR, VK3EKH.
VK3EKH, VK3JR. Is that better?
Yep, that sounds a bit better.
Well, here we go. VK, I enjoyed the broadcast. Thank you. I won't hold it long. Enjoyed the broadcast, and thank you for doing particularly the article on Galileo. Well, I didn't know that stuff. It's good to have it broadcast. And the whole thing was really very interesting that I heard. So the number of exoplanets officially is 4596, two more than last week, I think. Good evening to everyone. Stay well and enjoy your newfound freedom. Talk to you again next week. Thanks again for doing it, Clint. VK3EKH, VK3JR.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. VK3JR, VK3EKH. That sounded far better. You might have had your compression on or something. I'm not sure, but if it was that, you've turned it off. It's made the audio sound a whole lot easier. Yeah, thanks, Frank. Yeah, like I said, I've been holding off on that article on Galileo, so I thought I'd try and squeeze it in tonight. So I might have rushed through it a bit too quickly, unfortunately. All right, thanks, Frank. You're about 20 over 9, so definitely a good signal though, not a problem at all. John, I think it is VK3BSE, VK3EKH.
Enjoyed the broadcast. The Galileo story was very good. And seeing these days going against the commonly accepted thoughts and ways to know is met with some resistance. But anyway, good on him for putting his views forward. Anyway, I quite enjoyed the broadcast. Something signal here, which I think is basically considering the antenna
VK3BSE, VK3EKH. No worries, John. I think your antenna might need a little bit of work. Your signal is about readability 4.5, and just peaking the 8 to 9, strength 8 to 9. So we can hear you, but I suspect down from the summers there you should be absolutely booming through, I would think. So, but nevertheless, we copied all that, and I agree with the comments on Galileo. What a time he had to live through. It was definitely before his time, but without that man's work on things, we might have been still, a bit behind the times. Anyway, yeah. All right, thanks, John. Thanks very much for calling in. Really appreciate that, and got you in the log for sure. All right, Ian, I think you might have called in first, Ian, and I might have confused your call sign with what I thought was VK3KIS, Andrew, but maybe not, I'm not sure. Anyway, your turn. VK3VIN, VK3EKH.
Yep, no worries, Clint. VK3EKH, VK3VIN. It's a very interesting broadcast, and similar to others, I enjoyed the information on Galileo. Wasn't married but had a family, that's good. I didn't know about him being a musician. There was a lot I didn't know, so that's good. It's good learning from so long ago. He was really quite ahead of his time in a lot of ways, wasn't he? And the statement about if you want to do astronomy, make sure you're in a rich country. That was rather interesting. I would have thought the Russians would have done quite nicely with Sputnik and other exploratory projects, and crashing into an asteroid. What a wonderful pastime, a bit like a demolition derby, isn't it? Or derby. But nevertheless, interesting to discover what they decide to do, just in case. Isn't that incredible? Now, report 5/9 plus 20 to 30 as usual, but the bands didn't start to phase until 7 minutes to 11 o'clock, which is quite a lot later than what it normally starts to phase. So phasing started at 7 to 11, and it is still phasing. So some interesting sounds. Okay, that'll do it for me. Oh, are you able to tell me where to find that last week you referred to an interview with Dick Smith, but I haven't been able to find it, and I would very much like to listen to it. So a URL or a place to find it on YouTube would be much appreciated. Thanks again for the broadcast, always entertaining. I always learn something, and I enjoy your very human and down-to-earth reading style. So it's good, mate. Wouldn't be without it. VK.
Glad to hear that.
3 EKH, VK3VIN.
Thanks, Ian. VK3VIN. Flatfoot Rock? No. That one, the Kangaroo Flat. That's it. VK3EKH. Well, I'm glad someone appreciates it. I often wish I went to the academic school and learned how to pronounce things. But I only went to the Dandenong Tech, the Dandenong Technical School, to learn what to do with my hands. So everything else went out the door. anyway, I've got my ham license, that's the main thing. And there's a few other things, of course, but yeah, anyway. That's another story. Alright, what was I going to say? Yes, Dick Smith, that was a fantastic interview. I actually televised it on Tuesday night on the TV repeater. To all those watching RTV2, I just waved to them. And yes, I can send you a link. It is freely available to view on YouTube and very easy to come by. So Hayden, VK7 Hotel was the key instigator of that interview, I gather. And yeah, I sent an email across to Hayden to ask firstly if he didn't mind me televising the 1 hour interview over the repeater, TV repeater last Tuesday, and he said yep, go for it. Just give his YouTube site a bit of a plug, which I did. So yeah, if you type in VK7 Hotel, I think it'll do it in the YouTube search engine. You'll come across the interview with Tricky Dicky. So there was quite a lot of interesting things that Mr. Smith went through and talked about. Most entertaining indeed. So there's actually quite a lot of other things on Dick Smith there, where he's on camera talking about stuff. So I might be keen to follow up on that too. Anyway, but I'll send you. I'm quite happy to send the link to you via email. Not a problem. But yeah, no, thanks, Ian. Appreciate the comments. Steve, VK3 November Fox Sierra. Have a say, VK3C EKH.
Yeah, okay, VK3 CKH, VK3, it's a very good evening. Hello, Ian, and everybody else on there listening. Very interesting broadcast. I was a bit late getting here, I apologise. I come in about you when you're doing the band reports or the solar reports and stuff. I got hung up on 28 or 10 metres. Pretty open a little bit up here in Wodonga, and we've been getting stuck into it a little bit. But give it a bit of a hide. But that's alright. Good signal, 20 dB over coming into Wodonga tonight, so no problem on that. And I'll sleep a little bit better knowing there's a few more rocks floating around the Earth or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean. But I just won't tell the kids because I have nightmares. Alright, Clint, thank you very much for the broadcast. Well picked up on it. Sorry, I apologise for running late anyway, but yeah, you know what it's like. You get stuck into it. Yeah, it's a good track of time. VK3EKH, VK3NFS, 73 south.
No worries. Thanks, Steve. VK3NFS, VK3 EKH returning. Very good. Good signal from you tonight. You're 5 and 9, basically 5 and 9, but the band is pretty quiet. So you're coming through nice and clear tonight. So not a problem. And excuses forgiven. If the band opens further up, that's fine. Go and work a few stations. You know, there's going to be a lot of that over the next 5 odd years as the solar cycle begins to ramp up. So yep, work that DX when it becomes available. Yeah, no worries, Steve. Good on you, mate. Thanks very much. Okay, Martin, VK7JAH down there in Tassie. Go and have a say. VK3EKH.
VK3EKH, VK7JAH. Good evening, Clint. Yeah, good broadcast. We talked a bit about parks. I've actually walked on the top of the Cambridge dish down here, which was significantly smaller, it's sort of 26 metres ish, and quite spectacular to walk on the top of it when it's pointing directly up. But yeah, no, enjoyed it down here. Noise levels are slowly increasing. You're still 5 and 9 at the moment, although I'm missing a few of the other stations in the background there. VK3EKH, VK7JAH.
Yeah, not a problem, Martin. VK7JAH, VK3EKH returning. Very good, very good. Not a problem. Well, at least we're getting down there with some degree of strength. And again, like I say, the band noise isn't too bad tonight, so we're hearing you reasonably well. But yeah, thanks for popping up there on the chat window and saying g'day to the folks up there as well. And all very good indeed. All right, thanks, Martin. And now it's across to David, VK2ELS, VK3EKH.
VK3EKH with a group VK2 Echo Lima Sierra. Yes, thank you very much, President. Especially good broadcast tonight. And you're 5 over 9, 5 over 9. And I'm copying most people here in up there called Tata. So it was a very, very good broadcast. And wonderful the information about Galileo. And I particularly enjoyed that because in my days as a teacher, before I retired 4 years ago, I used to teach Galileo's complex experiments. We didn't have a computer. We used to use the ramp, the inclined plane. We got a very long piece of timber, very old and heavy board down there, and we marked off the distance we travelled in seconds. When we had the angle of about 16 degrees on the horizon, and the gravitational acceleration really matters. Anyway, it really brought back some very happy memories. Thank you very much indeed. I might hold it, not sure how long I'm getting through, but you're passing through nicely tonight.
Yeah, thanks, David. VK2 ELS, VK3 EKH returning. Very good. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think if you're in a position to be a teacher or a science teacher, or in a position to be able to talk about Galileo to young students, I mean, I think some of the information that you can impart to the inquiring mind about Galileo would be really absorbed very, very well indeed. As Frank, I think, pointed out before, those 12 points of Galileo, which some of those points may not have been people may not have been aware of, really just goes to show the versatility of the man and what sort of things he got up to. So yeah, really interesting stuff indeed. You're running at about readability 4.5, 4ish to 5, and peaking about S8. So thank goodness the band is quiet. I would have really struggled on you. But no worries, David. Thanks for calling in. Really good to hear you. Now, the next station on the list is losing my voice now. Testing 1, 2, 3. The next fellow is VK2 Charlie Bravo Delta. This could be interesting. VK2 CBD, VK3 EKH. Have a sober it.
Yeah, good evening, Clint and the group. VK3 EKH, VK2 CBD. Well, this has been fascinating for me. I was just mucking about with someone else on 160, was tuning across, and all of a sudden started to hear John Cecian's dulcet tones, and really thought, what the hell is going on? How did he get an amateur radio licence? So I shouldn't be nasty to John. I worked with him at the Parkes telescope. He's a great guy and very generous with his time, but I was just very surprised to hear him on 160. But it clicked with me then, Clint, that your broadcast must have been going on. I'd read about it on your web pages, and many times thought I must have a listen. And so tonight I have. Unfortunately, I've just caught the last bit of it, as I said, but very interesting. Thank you for doing it. You're doing a great job, a very professional job, and I'll make an effort to tune in future. And I'd love to catch up with you sometime and talk a bit more about radio astronomy when you've got a bit of time. Back to you, VK3 EKH and the group. This is VK2 CBD.
Right, VK2 CBD, VK3 EKH returning. Well, yes, g'day Brett. It's good to catch up with you for the first time on the wireless. Yeah, there's a bit of history there, and I think you'd have a lot to say, actually. I think you're involved, or were involved with the Fringe website, which I think is still sitting up there on the internet. Haven't gone there for a while. I think you're also involved with the installation of the Radio Jove antenna that was put up at Parkes as a demonstration radio astronomy. How easy it is to be able to do radio astronomy with a very simple setup. And there was an open day weekend up at Parkes. I can't remember the year right now, but I remember getting in contact with John via email to say that I was heading up there for the open day, and it'd be great to catch up with him. And yeah, so it was a busy weekend, so I only had a very short time with John. But he walked me across to the open field where the Radio Jove antenna had been set up on 4 wooden poles, and I think at the time it was temporarily been disconnected, probably as a result of the open day. There was so much other things happening, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you're the fellow that was involved with the Fringe website for radio astronomy, and the interconnection of 2 Jove receivers, although I don't think they were the exact Jove receivers designed by the folks overseas. I think it was purely your design. Or was it? No, was it there was a... Oh, I can't remember it now. Anyway, so yeah, I think you're the fellow behind all that. And yeah, in a nutshell, I used to be the section director for radio astronomy at the ASV, and for about 12 years, I think. Robert Arrowsmith is now the section director, VK3XRA. He's on the website as I speak, and he actually says there on the chat window that he says, "Glad you're here, VK2CBD." So, Rob's acknowledging you there as well. He's the new section director for our radio astronomy section. Yeah, the COVID's really restricted us a little bit over the last 18 months or so for activity up at the dark sky site that we have up at Heathcote. But we have a 30-foot dish up there now operational, and although we're still trying to work out the receive side of things, but we've got a hydrogen line receiver on it, and we're trying to get the fine tuning, so to speak, of it done. But if you ever come down to Victoria, you're more than welcome to pop along to our Heathcote site on one of the odd openings that we have up there. Like for instance, we have a barbecue coming up on the 11th of December, I think it is, which is generally one of the rarest openings that we have, where the public can come in to have a look at what's going on up there, and maybe go home with a bit of a taste for astronomy. But the ASV website is where we have a dedicated page to our radio astronomy activities, and you can sort of check that out at some stage too. Good to hear, Brad. Thanks for calling in. And yeah, like I said, on the Astrophiz website where I get the podcasts from, there's at least another 2 interviews that Brendan's done with John, which I'll feature over the next coming weeks as such. Might even run the next one next week, maybe. I might even do that. Yeah. I'll just pop it back to you. VK2CBD, VK3EKH.
Yeah, thanks, Clint. VK3EKH, VK2CBD. Yeah, I do keep an eye on your webpage actually, and the job you've done with the 30-foot dish looks fantastic, and you're starting to get some results out of it. So that's great. It's I guess to the uninitiated it looks impressive, but to people that know what's involved in getting something like that going, it's much more than impressive. It's a great achievement. So well done to you and the group. It's something that I'm sure will bring a lot of pleasure to people, and it'll be something that'll be around for a long time to come. The group will learn a lot from mucking about with that, I'm sure. So again, well done. That's no mean feat. Anyway, I won't hold it. There may be others that want to call in. Again, well done on the broadcast. Really great. And yeah, I'll definitely drop in more often. Cheers for now with VK3EKH and the group, VK2CBD.
Thanks, Brett. VK2CBD, VK3EKH. Not a problem. Glad to hear you. Thanks very much indeed for calling in. It's certainly topped the night off very nicely. Isn't it, Rob? All right, cheers, everyone. Let's just check if there's anybody else. VK3EKH listening.
VK3HDX.
Of course. Have a say, Don. VK3HDX, lovely signal. But by the way, Brett, you were 5 and 9 plus 10 too. You had quite a nice signal here too. Take it, Don. VK3HDX, VK3EKH.
Yeah, good evening, Clint. Good evening, all. VK3EKH, DKH. Oh gosh, and the group VK3HDX. Yeah, I've been listening the last few weeks, Clint, but just remotely via Sydney, as we had to, we're moving back here, get out of our house. It's now handed over to the new owners, and I'm back in the shack. So I was able to listen to you here tonight, so I haven't been able to respond just listening remotely, but I've been enjoying it. And like everybody else, enjoyed the Galileo article tonight. Lots there. Really good broadcast this evening, Clint, and I'm glad I'm back in town now and have a weekend of antenna erecting planned. The tower's going back up tomorrow with antennas on it, so hopefully I'll have an even better signal next week. Thanks for your efforts with the broadcast. Again, it was very interesting tonight. VK3 EKH, VK3 Hotel Delta X-ray.
Thanks, Don. VK3HDX. On the Anan wireless, no doubt. VK3 EKH returning. Yeah, it's been a bit of fun, and if I had have, I didn't exactly know how long that interview with John went for. It was quite lengthy, and I think John went like a machine gun trying to say what he was saying to get things over quickly. But I knew when I decided to read the Galileo article that I was going to run out of time, and of course I was even racing it myself, so tripping over my own words. But I'm glad everybody liked it. So all very good. Happy for that. Thanks, Don. Welcome back to the good old Melbourne town. Okay, is there anybody else? VK3 EKH.
VK3 Delta Romeo Whiskey. JK, just to check in, check out there, over.
Yeah, got you there, Russell. Who was the other station just then?
VK2 JK, Jim, just to check in, check out, mate.
Just to get the right call sign, VK2 Juliet Kilo November, is that right?
QSL, mate, QSL.
And the name?
Jim.
Thanks, Jim. You're right, about 5 for 9 plus 5 to 10 very quickly. Yeah, about 5 for 9 plus 10. So you're coming through pretty well too there, not a problem at all. All right, now, Russell. VK3DRW, have a say, mate. It's a long time since we've heard you. How are you? VK3EKH.
VK3EKH from VK. It has been a long time, but I listen in regularly just to let you know, sitting here. So what I'll do is I wish you a happy birthday now. Happy New Year for everyone. Galileo was interesting for back then. Actually, I was lucky enough to visit Florence, and I did see just a quick call, Clint, to say hello and great to hear you there. VK3 EKH from VK3 Delta Romeo Whiskey.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. VK3DRW, the former station operator of the broadcast from 1988. VK3 EKH returning. Something happened to your signal halfway through, Russell. You're 20 over 9 here normally at the beginning and at the end, but I don't know whether you have a linear in line, but something dropped out halfway through, and your signal dropped right down to about a strength 8, 7 to 8. I was still able to copy you, but then you're either a connection or linear, I'm not sure what, kicked back in again, and your signal came up to 20 over 9, so something's a little intermittent there, but I acknowledge the wishes for Christmas, and I think you said birthday. It's not quite my birthday, not yet, not until May next year, but I'm not sure whose birthday it was. But I did hear the wishes for Christmas, and that's not far away, 4 weeks. So yeah, how quick this year's gone. And okay, on the Galileo, I'm tripping over that now, article. Yeah, I might revisit that article under a better paced arrangement in maybe in a few months' time, since it seems to be a favourite. G'day, Russell. But look, thanks for calling in too. That's two little surprises tonight. And like I say, everyone, you're listening to there, Russell, who was the who used to operate the broadcast since 1988, since its inception from the very beginning, for 20 years. He was on the microphone, and from when I took over, which I think was 2008 or something like that, when we did the crossover. Good to hear, Russell, and I hope you're doing well, and have you still got that yacht? I often think about that. Okay, I think that's it. I'll pop it back to you just briefly, Russell. VK3 DRW, VK3 EKH.
Yeah, fine, Clint. I don't know what happened here, so not too sure. But never mind. I haven't used the equipment for about 8-9 months. It's listening regularly, so I'm using it as a receiver. So I don't know how it's big enough. But anyway, it was actually a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Happy birthday. I'm a whole lot all thrown into one, you see. So thank you, Clint. Thank you very much for a great night.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. Yeah, your transmission did the same thing. You dropped down to a strength 7, and then all of a sudden you came back up to 20 over. So there's something intermittent on the system there. See, this is the problem. You've got to use your radio more often. That's it. Okay, you can't just have it there and turned on every so often. You actually have to come up and say hi. Get those cobwebs out of the system. That's what's happening. Oh dear. Thanks, Russell. Good to hear, mate, and all the best wishes for you too, and Elizabeth, and I trust everybody is fine, and all the best for Christmas too. All right, if there's no other stations, we shall close down for the night. This is VK3 EKH.
VK3 EKH, VK3 VAT, better put me in the log, mate.
All right. That was VK3 VAT. I'll just put that down on the... Oh, what am I writing VK2 for? VK3. There we go. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stations tonight. Gee, that's a record. Maybe it's because... I don't know. Anyway, all right. Thanks, everybody. I shall go quote and resort back to my own call sign, I guess. So, on behalf of the Astronomical Society of Victoria, thanks everybody for calling in tonight, and all the fellows there on the chat window. And we'll be back next Friday. I'll be just to let you know. I finish up at work. That is for Christmas break on the 23rd. I think it is our last day. No, 22nd. 22nd's the last day at work. 23rd, I have 3 days. Yeah, I have 3 weeks off over Christmas, and I will probably take those 3 weeks off as a sabbatical on the broadcast. So I'll just let you all know that on the last broadcast when that comes up, which will be probably. Let me have a look at the calendar. Where is it? November 10th. What's the next day after that? Going forward, December 10, 17, 24, 17, 24, 17. Okay, I'll make December the 17th the last broadcast, and then I'll take a 3 week sabbatical and come back. I'll let you know that anyway in a few weeks' time. So on that note, cheers everyone, take care, look after yourselves, and yeah, let's enjoy our little bit of freedom that we have, if we want to call it that. This is VK3 EKH on behalf of the Astronomical Society of Victoria, concluding transmissions on 3541 and YouTube and the TV in a moment or two. This is VK3EKH. Right, so with everybody gone and the YouTube stream, let's conclude the YouTube stream. So cheers everyone watching the YouTube stream. It's been an exciting night, so we'll be back next Friday at 10 o'clock to do it all over again. This is VK3EKH, ASV Radio, saying cheers to you guys.